Hey guys, this is a video about interest. Specifically, we're just going to talk about simple interest. So there's another kind of interest called compound interest, but we're going to talk about that later. So you're going to encounter interest anytime you borrow money or invest your money. So maybe you want to borrow some money because you're going to buy a house. And that's probably a really common example of borrowing money. So maybe you're going to have a mortgage on your house. So let's say you buy a house and it costs you like $600,000. You don't have that kind of money, probably. So you got to borrow it from a financial institution like a bank. And they're not just going to give you $600,000. So they're going to charge you interest. So they're going to charge you like a certain percent that you have to pay on top of the $600,000 that you're borrowing from them. Another thing or maybe you want to buy a car and you're not going to buy a used car that you can afford. You're going to buy a brand new car that's like $50,000 and you can't afford it. So you're going to have like car payments and maybe that company is going to charge you interest. Yeah, so anytime you have to borrow money, you're going to have to pay interest. And when you invest money, that means you're giving your money to a bank or some kind of financial institution. And this time, you're giving them money, so they're going to give you some interest on your money. So really good things to invest in would be when you're young, it's nice to invest some money, maybe like a GIC, a guaranteed investment certificate, where you give them a certain amount of money, you decide how long they're going to have it for, and you can't access it, but you'll just earn interest while they have it. So maybe you have an extra $5,000, and you're like, I'm going to invest that in a 3-year GIC. And they have your $5,000 for 3 years, and maybe you'll earn a certain percent on it, like 5%. So you're just earning money. So it's like maybe you want to save for school or save for a car or something. So maybe you want to do something like that, and it's guaranteed. So it's not risky. You won't lose any money. So there's other kinds of investments like stocks, bonds. And investments can be risky or not risky. Like there's a whole world of financial math that's very interesting. And we're not getting into that. We're just briefly touching the surface on what interest is. Maybe you want to invest in your retirement. So lots of people get RRSPs. And they get them when they're young. So maybe when you're 20, you get an RRSP and you decide, I'm going to make sure I deposit $1,000 every year into my RRSP. And then that money, maybe you're not going to retire until you're 60. So for 40 years, you're putting money in and you're earning interest on that money. And you can be very risky when you're young because you have 40 years to earn money on this. And the riskier you are, the bigger the percent interest is. But the bigger chance you have to lose the money too. And then there's this called RESPs, a Registered Education Savings Plan. And that could be like maybe something you do for your future kids or your parents have done for you or a guardian has done for you. And that way you save some money to go towards your education because university or college could be very expensive. And so you want to save some money. So all of these things involve interest. And just a really simple way to calculate interest is this. So this is called simple interest. You basically just earn a certain percent in a certain time period. So let's just say you were going to invest $8,000. You have $8,000 and you're going to invest it. And let's just say you have, so actually we call this amount of money that you're going to invest, we sometimes call it the principal. So that's the principal. That's the initial amount of money that you're investing. So we call it principal, and we sometimes designate it with a P. And then there's also like an interest rate. So like, what is the rate that you're going to invest at? So let's say this interest is going to be 8%. So you're earning 8%. And they usually tell you like, how often are you earning that interest? So let's say you're earning that interest per year. So every year you get 8%. So we call that the interest rate. And usually we designate it with an R. And then there's also the time period that you invest for. So let's say you're going to invest it for 6 years. Let's say you know you're going to go to university in 6 years. So you're going to invest some money and we'll see how much you have after 6 years. So we call this, the time period, or the borrowing period, the investment period, the number of periods. And that can be represented with a T, or sometimes N. And all together, we're going to try to find out how much interest you make. So basically, you want to turn your percent into a decimal. So this guy right here, if we want to turn that into a decimal, we just divide it by 100. So it would be 0.08. And if we want to calculate the amount of interest, I'm going to use I for interest. So the I represents interest. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my principal times my interest rate times my time period. And I will get $8,000 times 8%, which I write as 0.08, times 6 years. And then I just calculate that. So 8,000 times 0.08 times 6 would equal $3,840. So that's how much interest I made on my investment. So all together, total, I would have whatever my interest is plus my original investment. That would be the total amount I have. So my interest was $3,840 plus my principal investment was $8,000. So yeah, if you just add that together, you would have $11,840. So that's how you do simple interest. This formula is pretty handy. Interest equals principal times rate times time. Sometimes maybe you want to calculate, like, maybe you know a different part of the formula and you want to solve for another variable. So let's just try one of those. So let's say, we have let's say we have an interest rate of 6% per year. Sometimes that's called per annum, if you've ever seen that. And let's say our investment is going to be, so our principal amount is going to be $1,957. And then let's just say that the interest we earn is going to be $1,174.20. So we know the rate, we know the principal investment, and we know the interest that we made. So let's say we're trying to figure out how much time did we invest our money for. Well, here's another key. The interest, like, since it's calculated per year, you need your time to be in the same units. So the time period would have to be in years as well. Okay, so remember how our formula was I equals principal times rate times time. Well, now T is our unknown. So I want to isolate T. So I'm going to divide this side by PR, and I'm going to divide this side by PR. So it's just like we're solving an equation. So these cancel out, and I'm left with T equals I divided by PR. So I just rearranged my equation. So time equals, my interest I've made is $1,174.20. And I'm going to divide that by my principal amount and 6%, but I got to put that as a decimal. So 0.06. So let's figure out our number of years. Okay, so I got 10. So 10 years. So if you invested nearly $2,000 at 6% for 10 years, you would make that much money. That's a long time to invest your money, but it's not like you invested that much. Like $1,900, that's not that much money. So yeah, I mean, the bigger the interest rate, the more money you're gonna earn. The more years you invest for, the more money you're gonna earn. So it's better to do the longest investment you can is gonna make you more money. And obviously the best interest rate is gonna make you more money. And then if you're borrowing money, the opposite would be true, right? So if you're borrowing money, you want your interest rate to be really low. And the number of years, I mean, you're gonna pay more interest the longer you borrow money for. So all of these things factor in. So just brief chat about borrowing money, because these were two examples of like investing your money. So we made money. If we're borrowing money, we have to pay interest, and we don't want to pay a lot of interest. So when you're borrowing money, you always want to look for a low interest rate. So I think I have a mortgage, and I think my interest rate is like 1.9%. So that's a pretty low interest rate. So you always want to look for something, you always want to look for a low interest rate. You don't want to borrow money at like some high percent. So like, for example, a credit card. Let's say you wanted a credit card. And let's say you couldn't pay your credit card off because you charged too many things and you don't have enough money. Credit card companies are crazy. They charge like 19% interest. So you have to be really careful about your interest rate. Also, the number of years that you're going to borrow money for. So if you pick a high number of years, like a lot of mortgages are like 25 years. I think that's what mine is. And some people need that because you don't have enough money to pay. So like if your mortgage was only 10 years and you had a mortgage for $600,000, you're going to have to pay a lot of money per month to pay off your mortgage. Whereas if your mortgage was 25 years, your mortgage payments would be a little bit smaller. So maybe you could afford it more. So there's lots of factors when borrowing money. And this is just a simple interest. There's actually another type of interest called compound interest, which we'll do next.